How do you go from a fractured land of forests and tribes to the absolute economic and political heart of Europe? Well, Germany's story is one of constant reinvention, packed with incredible triumphs, awful tragedies, and just stunning transformations. Today, we're diving into its long and dramatic history.
So that's the big question, right? How did this collection of different tribes in the middle of Europe manage to forge a single nation, lose it all in the most spectacular way, and then build itself back up to become the powerhouse it is today? To really get it, we've got to go way, way back to the beginning.
All right, so our story starts long before a country called Germany was even a thought. I want you to picture a land of deep, dark forests and wide rivers. A place where your loyalty was to your local tribe and your chief, not some far-off king you'd never met.
Now, to the mighty Roman Empire, this whole region was just one big, wild place they called Germania. For them, the Rhine and Danube rivers were this huge natural wall. It was the frontier, basically the edge of the known civilized world.
And you know what? They had a very good reason to think that way. Because in the year 9 AD, a massive coalition of Germanic tribes ambushed and completely wiped out 3 entire Roman legions. It was an absolute disaster for Rome. This one battle was a huge turning point. It basically stopped their expansion to the east dead in its tracks and created this cultural divide that would last for centuries.
So let's fast forward a few hundred years. The first real attempts to pull this patchwork of tribes together into a single, unified empire are finally starting to take shape.
We see 2 major swings at trying to bring back the ghost of the Roman Empire. First up is the legend himself, Charlemagne, who gets crowned emperor in 800 AD. The problem is, his empire was built around him, and it pretty much falls apart after he dies. But the idea, that idea doesn't die. In 962, a guy named Otto the Great picks up the torch and establishes what we now call the Holy Roman Empire. And you gotta understand, these were 2 totally different kinds of empires. Charlemagne's was a personal project, really held together by his own force of will. The Holy Roman Empire, though, was something else entirely. It lasted for 1,000 years, but it was never really a single unified country. It's better to think of it like a loose club made up of hundreds of little states and cities. And this decentralized nature is so important. It's actually the historical root of Germany's modern federal system. That lack of a strong central government really set the stage for our next chapter, a time of deep, deep division, fueled by radical new ideas and the rise of some powerful new players in the German-speaking world.
In 1517, a religious argument just explodes into a full-blown revolution. When Martin Luther posts his criticisms of the Catholic Church, the brand new printing press spreads his ideas like wildfire. This splits the empire right down the middle, as northern princes use this new Protestantism to break away from the Catholic emperor's control. This religious split leads to one of the most brutal conflicts in European history, the 30 Years' War. It was an absolute catastrophe. Between the fighting, the starvation, and the disease, some parts of Germany lost over half their population. We're talking about a death toll of up to 8 million people. It's almost impossible to imagine. When the dust finally settles, 2 major German-speaking powers are left standing as the main rivals. In the south, you've got the Old Guard, the Habsburgs in Austria, who are the traditional emperors. And then, up in the north, you have the newcomer, the tough, militaristic, and really ambitious Kingdom of Prussia. This rivalry is going to define everything for the next 200 years.
But that dream of a single German nation, it never really died. And in the 19th century, it was Prussia that finally decided it was time to make it happen. Not by talking, but by fighting.
And this was the philosophy of the guy who would pull it all off, Otto von Bismarck. As the head of Prussia, he was a master of cold, hard politics. He basically said, look, unity isn't going to come from nice speeches and voting. It's going to come from Prussian steel and Prussian cannons.
And Bismarck had this brilliant, ruthless 3-step plan. First, a quick, easy war with Denmark to show who's boss. Second, a decisive war against their main rival Austria to kick them out of German business for good. And the final, genius move, he provokes a war with France, because he knew that an outside enemy would make all the other southern German states rally to Prussia's side for protection.
And you know what? It worked perfectly. In a moment of incredible victory and a huge humiliation for their enemies, the German Empire was officially declared, not in Berlin, but in the Hall of Mirrors at the French Palace of Versailles. Talk about a power move. For the very first time, Germany was a real unified country.
So this new German empire was a monster. It was an industrial and military giant. But its own ambition and a series of absolutely catastrophic decisions would drag it and the entire world into two horrific wars, which would end in its total collapse and division.
And the road to disaster was unbelievably quick. The smart, cautious Bismarck gets fired by a new, arrogant Kaiser. Germany gets aggressive on the world stage, and this tangled web of alliances pulls all of Europe into World War I. By 1918, the empire is gone, and the chaos and shame that followed created the perfect breeding ground for extremism, leading a radicalized Germany to start World War II just 20 years later.
A huge part of the problem was the treaty that ended World War I, the Treaty of Versailles. It was just incredibly harsh. Germany was forced to accept all the blame for the war, pay crippling amounts of money, and give up huge chunks of territory. This created this deep feeling of national humiliation and economic desperation, which basically poisoned their new democracy from the very start.
The end of World War II was even more absolute. Germany surrendered unconditionally. The country literally stopped existing as a nation and was just carved up into zones by the winning Allied powers. That unity Bismarck had built, it was completely shattered.
But the story doesn't stop there. Out of those ashes rose two brand new Germanys, stuck on the front lines of the Cold War, which would eventually lead to one of the most amazing and peaceful reunions in modern history.
For more than 40 years, the Iron Curtain sliced the nation in two. In the West, you had the Federal Republic of Germany, a democracy with a free market allied with the US and NATO. In the East, you had the German Democratic Republic, a repressive communist dictatorship controlled by the Soviet Union. I mean, they were two completely different worlds on the exact same land. The Berlin Wall, built in '61, was the ultimate symbol of this divide. So when it came crashing down in 1989, thanks to peaceful protests from East Germans demanding freedom, it was electrifying. It basically signaled the end of the Cold War. Everything moved at lightning speed after that, and less than a year later, Germany was one country again.
And what a transformation. I mean, think about the challenges of smashing two totally different societies and economies together. And yet, from the wreckage of the 20th century, a reunified Germany has emerged as a stable democracy, an economic giant, and a pillar of the European Union. It's a nation that has truly reinvented itself.
So, from scattered tribes to a shattered empire, and then finally to a reunified, peaceful leader, Germany's journey is just a powerful story of resilience. This is a nation that has reinvented itself over and over again. And the only question left is, what's the next chapter going to be for the nation at the very heart of Europe?